that we should all be put away for a minimum of 20 years. I believe that the inability to love our country and to serve her, or at least honor those who did choose to serve her, is an existential threat to our republic and our way of life. I saw it in that courtroom. And by the way, reference to Nancy Pelosi. To be clear, there is no DNA evidence to link me to Ms. Pelosi's doorknob. Just want that out there. No discussion of the Oath Keeper trial is complete without a discussion about the star witness for the prosecution. A guy we were introduced to as Rashid. Rashid was not a Middle Easterner. Abdullah Rashid was portrayed as the West Virginia state chapter president for the Oath Keepers. Allegedly, he had been part of a Zoom call, video conference call, and was so outraged at hearing what the Oath Keepers were cooking up for January 6th that he produced another phone and recorded what was on his phone. So upset was he that he rushed to the FBI with that information a year and a half later. What was interesting is that, as I told you, I was tried with the actual commander of the Oath Keepers, who had never heard of Abdullah Rashid. Even on the witness stand, Rashid said that he could not name any other Oath Keepers. He'd never met one, never been to a meeting or an event. Couldn't even describe how he became the West Virginia state leader, especially when there was no West Virginia chapter of the Oath Keepers. You smell a rat, you're not the only one. If you'll forgive me from the actual trial transcript, I thought I would share this. It comes from the questioning of Abdullah Rashid by defense counsel, Mr. David Fisher, beginning at page 2028, if you'll forgive me. Question: how long would you say this meeting went on? Answer: I need more information. I could answer if the government would tell me how long it was. Question: you said a moment ago the plan was to, quote, take over the White House. Rashid: yeah, that was it. I guess he forgot that he was supposed to testify at the Capitol, not the White House. Who cares? Never mind. Oops. Question: sir, would you agree that since 2007, you have gone by 6 different names and personas? Is that correct? Answer from Rashid: probably more like 30 or 40. Question: are you a convicted felon? Rashid's answer: yeah. Question: sir, to be clear, your prior conviction is for aggravated sexual assault of a child. Is that correct? Answer: yes. Question: is one of the things you asked the government for in return for your testimony today a new identity? Is that fair to say? Rashid: yes. I have no idea, ladies and gentlemen, where the star witness for the prosecution, Mr. Abdullah Rashid, is today. Perhaps he is in your community, lurking there with identity number 41, provided by the Biden DOJ. We did not know how things were going to turn out. We talked about how stacked the deck was against J6ers anyway. We did a lot of praying at that time, and then the verdicts were in. Conspiracy 1, not guilty. Number 2, not guilty. Not guilty. Amazing. The first not guilty verdicts, the first losses that DOJ had ever suffered, and yet I could only concentrate on the bogus guilty verdicts. Great legal minds said in a city that had voted 95% against Christian and conservative values, 95% against Donald Trump, a place from whence the jury pool, those people were going to convict everybody of something. Only Sharon understood, as I was fuming as I left the courtroom, though I wouldn't show it to the fawning media surrounding the DOJ. She said, don't you get it? You won. We won. If you've been found guilty of one single conspiracy that could drag you away, that's 20 years, and never would have seen you again. We'll beat these on appeal. She understood. Even through my rage, she understood. But with those guilty verdicts, I knew for certain that in America today, justice is just us. These two guilty verdicts had me looking at least 14 years in prison for felony convictions that had to do with Enron and selfies. The DOJ dragged out the punishment as we waited for sentencing. I remained in virtual lockdown, lost my constitutional rights. Of course, the 14th Amendment is equal protection under the law, which doesn't apply to conservatives, I guess. Our auto insurance, with a phone call from the DOJ, was canceled. USAA, who have those wonderful, touching, funny commercials starring an ex-football player, a lovable goof. 47 years of me paying my premiums. One phone call, and it was gone. The DOJ canceled my Social Security, canceled my military disability payments, canceled my military medical benefits, and in so doing, canceled the medical benefits for my darling wife, Sharon. Now a word about this sentencing thing I said. Sentencing happens after a guilty verdict is rendered. It usually happens within a couple of months of a guilty verdict. And this is where you go back to federal court and you stand there sort of, as the British would say, standing in the dock at midday to be publicly ridiculed and harangued for the things that you were found guilty of and the things that you were found not guilty of, just to keep it on just a little bit more. I was found guilty, wrongfully so, in November of 2022. And I believe that I set the world's record for January 6ers in terms of how long it took them to take me to sentencing. There was always something, there was always a date that was set. We would run right up to it. Sometimes the night before, I was going to have to go in and find out how many years I was going to have to serve in the Supermax in Florence, out in Colorado. A sentence I likely would not have lived. But there was always something. The judge was too busy. He had a conflict. There was paperwork that needed to be done. Any number of things. 2 Kings, chapter 6, in the Holy Bible, we are taught a story whose moral is that God is working even when we cannot see it. And so it was in this case. My agony should not have been agony because God had taken control. Every delay was because of Him. He delayed my sentencing so long, after a year of not being in sentencing, that the Supreme Court weighed in and said, in the landmark Fisher case,